to a location which I think is just as equally important in what's going on in the world today, and that is we're going to the top of a tree in Buckinghamshire, and we're going to speak to Steve Masters, who is a Green Party councillor for the West Berkshire Council, but he's been living in the top of a tree for 3 months while he forms part of the protest group for the HS2 line going through a beautiful little wood in his part of the world. He wants to try and save that wood, and he's on the line now. Steve, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mike. Can I just stop you there?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm no longer in the tree. Circumstances meant that I had to appear in Oxford magistrates yesterday.
Oh dear.
Having broken my bail for a previous action against HS2. The good news is that court case was dropped because the CPS couldn't get their evidence together in time. So,
I see. Well, that's a great update. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm now back at large. I'm back in my home base in West Berkshire in Newbury for a couple of days,
right.
And then I'll get back on the campaign trail. But at the moment, I'm doing a round of media with guys like you. Can I just say, Mike,
yes.
Your roundup and summary of the situation before you went to the break.
Yes.
I pretty much agree with 100%. HS2 is a non-viable white elephant, and especially, there was no business case for it prior to COVID. And as you explained, COVID has just destroyed it in the water.
Yeah, of course it does.
People are working from home. They've got used to that. They realise that there's just as productive, if not more productive, working from home where they can. Yeah. And it is just serving a vanity project for the Prime Minister and this dysfunctional government, frankly.
Well, not even the Prime Minister. Go as far back as David Cameron, who seemed to think that it was his gift to the nation, you know what I mean? But the other point is, Steve, we've got a £300 billion bill in overspend because of COVID-19. We could wipe 1/3 of that off right now if we just scrapped HS2. And I can't I can't reason out how any politician can't see that as being an obvious thing to do. So, Steve, just to get us right up to date here, did you have to come down out of the tree to attend the magistrates' court?
Yes, I was arrested. The National Enforcement Team, who are effectively the High Court appointed bailiffs, which sounds really grand and authoritative, but that is in effect a bunch of unaccountable bullies and thugs, and they've got a reputation. There was a guy...
Sorry, let me just qualify that. Why do you call them a bunch of unaccountable bullies and thugs?
Well, haven't
they got a job to do? I mean, they're given a job by an authority, aren't they?
They are given a job to do, and they come in and do it, and they brutalise the protesters who are there legitimately in them exercising our right to peaceful, non-violent protest.
Okay, well, I've got to jump in there and say, that's an allegation that you're making. I'm not dismissing it, but until we get a view from the other side, it remains an allegation. Now, Steve, I want you to tell me this, please. What is so special about Jones Hill Wood, where you have spent time in your tree and to which you are presumably going back to?
I do intend to go back to that location, Mike. Jones Hill Wood. I arrived at Jones Hill Wood on a walk along the length of HS2 back at the end of June, beginning of July, I believe. Yeah. And my feet were in a bit of a mess, and it was a place that I knew we were stopping, and I stopped there for the night as the rest of the walk did, and I fell in love with the place. It's a beautiful haven of biodiversity. Yeah. Ancient history. It's got evidence of Neolithic settlement, which dates back, to the earliest of Britons, and it's also got a literary history.
Yes.
So it's got those three things, and it's a magical place, Mike. If you can get out there to show some support, I would recommend before it's lost.
Well, let me tell you why this is such a poignant story for me. I'm an outpatient at Harefield Hospital, right? You know where Harefield Hospital is. It's not very far from the location of Jones Hill Wood, and I know how beautiful the countryside is around there. And one thing that we were told when we were patients in Harefield was that the reason that Harefield's situated where it is because it is incredibly soothing for the mental health of patients who are under stress to be able to use a facility like that in such beautiful countryside, okay? So I do not want railway lines being put through beautiful parts of the country like this, which A, I consider completely unnecessary, and B, I consider to be eco-vandalism. Now, the amazing thing is, Steve, that I'm not normally very sympathetic to people who sit in trees and stop what I would call progress. Do you remember a guy called Swampy?
I do remember a guy called Swampy, yes.
Yeah, and Swampy, just to remind everybody, he's a 46-year-old environmental activist from Newbury in Berkshire. He rose to fame in 1996 when he spent a week living in a complex of tunnels that had been dug in the path of the extension of the A30 road in Fairmile, Devon. Now, I was against Swampy because I thought, well, you know, so what you like about the cars, you need roads for cars, and I was against him. But I think that was on a principle of the motor car and all that. Yours is not a principle about the use of trains. It's a principle about your wood, isn't it?
It's about the wood. The wood is one of 108 ancient woodlands from between London and Birmingham that are going to be destroyed in this first phase of HS2. Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about the need. And if there has been a real willingness to assist the regeneration of the North, I don't know if you can tell, I'm a man of West Yorkshire. Yep. I grew up in a mining village. I went through my teenage years through the miners' strike in my colliery village, and I saw the way that those communities in Yorkshire, North Nottinghamshire, and Durham, etc., South Wales, were abandoned by the government of the time. And if they're really serious about those communities and doing work for those communities, they would have invested, like you said, in the East-West link. Yep. You know, the Northern Rail network is abysmal.
It is abysmal. I'm a boy from Chester, and as a kid, you know, when I was 15 or 16, before I couldn't drive, how do you think I could get over to Leeds and Sheffield to watch my team Everton, right? There is no cross-rail service in this country of any use whatsoever.
No, absolutely. I've lived up there until I joined the Royal Air Force. Yeah. But it's kind of ironic. You know, I was musing. It was 34 years ago on Wednesday when I signed on the dotted line to serve my country.
Good man.
And now I did 20 years as an engineer. Yeah. I still feel, as an elected member of West Berkshire Council, and I represent one of the wards that the Newbury bypass went through. So there is some kind of circular synergy to that.
Right,
and
I see.
I see this as an extension of my public service, and also service. I'm a grandfather of 3, right, and I want to give my grandchildren the opportunity to have a life that doesn't involve the effects of climate change nearly as bad as HS2 is also going to inflict. It will not be carbon neutral for 120 years. Yeah, and the Prime Minister talked on Monday about salvaging biodiversity, and then we're still wrecking areas of outstanding natural beauty, such as Jones Hill Wood, that are going to decimate and destroy oases, like you said about the Chiltern Valley and the Chiltern Hills.
Absolutely,
are absolutely magnificent.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
I suffer from mental health issues myself, and one of the reasons I fell in love with the place was I felt calm. Yep. Trees give off energy; they give off endorphins and pheromones.
That's right.
That naturally soothe, us as humans. Yeah. And so
they do.
It's a crime against the environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Finally, because we're a bit short of time here, Steve, but finally, and thank you very much for joining us today. Can I just ask, how many protesters are there? How determined are you to stay, and how long will you stay?
As I've stated on the public record for some time, I'm prepared to go to prison over this, and we will stay until we can stay no longer. Mm-hmm. When I left, there was actually more people in the trees than when we started. On the first night, I managed to get out to the edge of the woodland along the traversing lines and bring 2 people who'd been evicted the previous day back in, and that's continued. And I know you mentioned Swampy.
Yep.
It was reported on the BBC News last night that Swampy is actually occupying a tree.
Oh, really?
As of yesterday.
Oh, blimey, I didn't know that, to be honest. I just remember Swampy, but if he's joining the cause, good for him. I have an image in my head, Steve, of, I don't know if you ever saw the Robin Hood film starring Kevin Costner, Prince of Thieves, but they all ended up living in trees because the nasty Sheriff of Nottingham was after them. So I have that image in my head. I feel you're making a similar protest and defending yourselves in a way which should make a lot of us proud. Thank you very much indeed. That's Steve Masters, the Green Party councillor for the West Berkshire Council, who's been protesting at the site of a beautiful little wood in Berkshire for the last 3 months to try and stop HS2. The site is called Jones Hill Wood. Good for him. OK.